There is a recurring illusion in how humans interpret power. We often imagine control as something maintained through strength, through authority, through visible dominance. But history, psychology, and human behavior suggest a more complex reality. Control is rarely sustained through force alone. It is stabilized through the social mental control, through perception, through emotional conditioning, and most consistently, through instability. Chaos plays a peculiar role in systems of control. Not accidental chaos, not the turbulence of natural change, but manufactured instability, tension that never fully resolves, conflict that never fully settles, fear that never fully dissipates, because chaos performs a critical function. Chaos destabilizes clarity. Chaos fragments attention. Chaos keeps nervous systems activated, and activated systems are easier to influence. In a calm environment, perception sharpens. People reflect, question, recognize patterns. But in unstable environments, cognition narrows. Energy redirects toward survival. Reaction replaces reflection. Chaos becomes a regulator, a behavioral climate, a psychological atmosphere that sustains dependency. Within narcissistic psychology, this mechanism is deeply familiar. A fragmented internal world cannot tolerate prolonged stability. Stillness threatens the defensive structure. Peace reduces distraction. Clarity exposes distortion. And so disturbance emerges. Not always consciously, but functionally. At systemic scale, similar dynamics appear. A control-oriented structure must continuously justify its necessity. It must maintain relevance. Authority must remain indispensable. And indispensability often requires instability. If the environment stabilizes, questions arise. If fear subsides, autonomy increases. If clarity expands, hierarchies weaken. And so tension must persist. Here enters another stabilizing mechanism. This mechanism is violence, or more precisely, the credible presence of violence. Violence in this context is not always constant action. It has potential, possibility, an ever-present reminder of consequence. Psychologically, the function is unmistakable. Fear of regulation systems, behavioral shaping, boundary enforcement through threat rather than integration. Violence becomes the ultimate punctuation mark of control. When narratives weaken, force remains. When persuasion fails, coercion stabilizes structure. But violence alone cannot sustain systems indefinitely. Force is expensive, resistance accumulates. Instability must therefore be distributed, internalized, normalized. Chaos performs this role elegantly. When conflict saturates perception, violence feels justified. When fear dominates cognition, control feels necessary. When instability becomes background reality, coercion becomes ordinary. This is why chaos and violence often coexist. One prepares the psychological environment, the other enforces its limits. Beneath both lies a familiar psychological blueprint, the narcissistic stabilization model. Narcissistic structures require control to regulate internal fragility. Control systems require dominance to regulate structural fragility. Both operate through similar reflexes: destabilize coherence, fragment perception, amplify threat, preserve hierarchy. Violence, then, is not merely brutality. It is a regulatory strategy. Chaos is not merely a disorder. It is an environmental conditioning. Together, they stabilize systems that cannot sustain themselves through internal coherence alone. Yet beneath this dynamic lies a profound misunderstanding. Chaos is not strength. Violence is not stability. Fear is not order. They are compensatory mechanisms. They are regulators of fragility. True stability operates differently. True stability reduces dependency on force, reduces dependency on fear, reduces dependency on perpetual tension. True stability emerges from coherence, from clarity, from internal regulation rather than external domination. And here lies the deeper inversion. Peace is not the absence of power. Peace is the highest form of functional stability. Because peace stabilizes perception, peace stabilizes nervous systems, peace stabilizes identity. Peace reduces the structural need for chaos and coercion, which explains why peace, paradoxically, can feel threatening to systems dependent on instability to manufacture extraction. This also reveals something quietly transformative. When individuals and environments that are being extracted from cultivate inner coherence, when perception stabilizes beyond fear conditioning, when clarity strengthens, imposed chaos loses leverage, imposed violence loses justification, imposed control loses psychological weight,